Hi garden friends, welcome back to Valley View Flower Farm and my garden. I hope to take you on a bit of a tour today if the wind doesn't play up too much and show you around. We started the garden in about 2012 and it slowly developed over time, and it's just basically a mix of trees, shrubs, perennials and bulbs. The garden is definitely a work in progress. Still a lot of cutting back, pruning and tidying up to do before the onset of the real show, which for this garden is summer and autumn. That's when the perennials start to finesse and to show their real colour. But for the moment it's looking not so bad. We've had some rain recently, which helped green everything up because we had quite a dry start to spring. So the little bit of extra rain has been absolutely fantastic. This is probably the favourite view I have of the garden, which is the pin oak there just starting to come out into leaf, and then walking down towards my bath garden, which I did a little video on about a month ago, showing how that works and the setup of that. You can hear in the background some rumbling. That's the jet planes going over Mount Panorama. The Bathurst 1000 races are on this weekend, so we get the enjoyment of the jets flying over. In this section is the veggie garden, and the clematis is just coming out in flower. I like this part of the garden. I love this old stump. This stump was just an old, I think it's an old burl that had been cut down and used for firewood, and it was just sitting in the paddock, and my husband bought it up and placed it in the garden there as a bit of a feature under the silver birch trees. In front of the clematis there we have some stepover apples which are currently in flower, some society garlic, which I love using as a border in the garden. It creates a nice edge effect. And here we have some Watsonia in flower. There's not much going on in the veggie garden at the moment. I've got some carrot there going to seed, which I'm actually going to leave go to seed, and just see what those flowers look like in arrangements. Some rhubarb, some onions. The grape has just started now to leaf up, so we won't expect grapes off that till autumn. We've had a really hot spring so far, so things like peas that would usually do really well have struggled with the heat, and a lot of things have bolted. Perfect example of that, of something that we can't keep on top of, is the asparagus. We've been cutting the asparagus, but it simply just grows overnight, so it'll end up, we'll cut all the new spears off. These spears here, perfect for cutting. The other ones, once they get a little bit tall, they become quite woody and not enjoyable to eat. This section here is where I raise a lot of my seeds and my seedlings. And you'll see, my mum does mosaics, so you'll see quite a few mosaics around the garden. But this is quite a nice spot. It's east facing under the grape here, and I just find that it's a great spot to toughen out the plants after propagating them and growing them up in the greenhouse and the hothouse. The type of plants that I like to grow are perennials, Mediterranean type plants or hardy plants that can cope with a bit of stress. This section of the garden is a little bit messy, and the brown patches there are the cannas, which haven't started coming up yet. It wouldn't be a farm garden without a bit of skull artwork. We have a merino skull there with the gold bunny rose and a goat and some vertebrae there. The kids like to collect the bones, so we make a little bit of art out of them. This is the most recent section of the garden, and the idea of this skinny addition is to create a bit of a hedgerow, a bit of an additional windbreak to the back of the veggie garden. The veggie garden is just there, and also to hide the garden a little bit upon entry. There's our driveway there, so as you drive up you won't see the garden. It'll be more of a mystery as you drive in, but it's only a recent addition as of last year, so I need to wait for things to grow up. So what I've got planted in this section, just some smoke bush. I find they're really hardy in our dry climate, and some maybush, some viburnums, and that big oddly shaped plant there is actually a bay laurel or bay tree. We only clipped as far as we could reach, but we need to get up on the back of the ute then and finish shaping that off, because that grows quite big. I didn't realise how big bay trees got. I use the leaves for cooking, but otherwise I just love it. It's an evergreen and it's a bee magnet, so what's not to like? So on this side we've used a lot of saltbush and a lot of buddleia. I find both are very hardy. The saltbush is a bit of an experiment to see how it hedges up, and you know, being a native, it would be well suited to our climate, and I like the grey foliage, so I find that adds I don't know, a bit of year-round colour to the garden. There's not a lot going on in this section of the garden yet. We've just got a few trees and some shrubs. This is where I stick all my bits and pieces, but as I propagate more plants, I'll fill this area up. So we're back down here near the bath garden, and things are starting to grow up and seclude that area a little bit. And again, come summer, this garden will be truly in its element. This section here is just a bit of an island garden. That's the aloe rose, I think. And we have some broom, and we have a purple elderberry there, and we have a fig with some figs. So I'm trying to espalier the fig across this structure that my husband made. And the idea of this structure is to screen the bath garden. So when you're standing on top of the bank, you can't see the bath garden straight away. You need to walk down the bank in order to view the bath garden. I like using bits and pieces off the farm, and this is the front of this screened garden here, and that's just a roll of old fencing wire that usually you find in gullies has been thrown away by farmers when they tear down old fences, but I thought that would create an interesting bit of sculpture for the garden for that Harbenbergia to climb over. And you can see there the broom is in full flower. We had some recent big winds last weekend while we went away for the weekend, and we had some massive winds, and a lot of my roses got completely blown over. My husband makes these obelisk sculptures out of steel, and the roses, when they climb up them, get quite heavy, and I find that they blow over very easily. And here's a rose here that has been blown over that we'll need to cut back hard and try and put that back up. This is my favourite tree, although I think I said that for the pin oak, but definitely this is a beautiful tree, and it just gives so much depth of colour and dimension to the garden all year round. And they get such a bad rap, willows. This is the non-invasive one, but because willows are such a pest species in local waterways, they always get a bad rap. But this is not one that suckers. It's just so beautiful. It needs probably a bit of a prune, but it has little flowers and the bees adore it, and then it has just this movement throughout the garden. And I did actually try, it's a bit of an experiment, and I've grown a honeysuckle up underneath it because nothing really grows up underneath it because of the shade, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to live to regret that. The honeysuckle is now trying to climb up the weeping willow, but I need to get in there and give it a good prune. But we did have a brown snake down here yesterday, so I'm a little bit hesitant in going in and giving that a go today. I might wait till later in the afternoon, and hopefully that snake has moved on. This is the other side of that willow. We've just got a bit of a dry creek bed and a bit of a dam. That's an old dam scoop you can see just there that we've used to capture some runoff. This is another bit of sculpture that my husband made out of some old sulky rims, cast iron, off the old sulky carts, horse-drawn carts. Obviously there would have been timber spokes in the middle there and a smaller metal ring, but we found them on the farm, so we've put them together to make this little sculpture in this newly formed part of the garden. You'll hear the ducks in the background. We're on the other side of the lawn. And then the perennial garden follows around the back of the house. So just a quick tour of my garden today. I'll show you a bit more once I finish tidying up and more things are out in flower. But just wanted to show you how large it was and what we've got generally planted and the layout. So over in the flower farm, there's a few things starting to ramp up now. Finally got some snapdragons flowering. And these are just the tetra mix of snapdragons. I'm not sure whether I'm overly impressed with them. They're very pretty, but they're not as big and as full as I would have liked. We've also got some status just about to come into flower. And some more snapdragons there. Some Linaria there. And some Mr. Brown's toad flax. So I'll be interested to see how that looks. I have a nice Russian status flowering. That's been quite interesting. So it's got long tails. Quite an interesting texture. So that'll look quite nice, and I think it dries well. So we'll see how that goes. My delphiniums were not great, very short. Not sure if I grew the wrong variety, but they're pretty just the same. So we'll just see. They are a perennial, so I might see what they look like next year. And if they're no good for cut flowers, I might dig them up and put them in my garden. I've just started harvesting the foxgloves. These are the foxy foxgloves. They're the shorter variety, although the spikes on this are probably 4 foot high. So I think they're doing pretty well. And my lupins have started flowering, so I've been cutting on those. The sheep have had haircuts, so they'll be feeling nice and fresh. Ready for summer. Got their bikini bodies on. Hey boys. And they're doing a fantastic job of eating this paddock out, and which we will plough up very soon and plant some potatoes in. I also wanted to show you my ranunculus. So everybody's ranunculus season has probably come to an end, but ours is just starting. These beautiful, I don't know what colour, reddy pink. I thought they were supposed to be maroon. I'm not sure, is that maroon? I thought maroon was a bit darker. It doesn't matter, but they're beautiful, healthy big buds. So I'll be happy to harvest those very soon. I have a few of these Iceland poppies. I'm not sure whether I'm overly impressed with them as a cut flower. I much prefer things that last a lot longer in the vase, but what I do like about them is they're so delicate. They look like they're made out of crepe paper. They're just, the crinkly petals are just beautiful. So I would definitely have them growing in my garden, but I'm not sure about them as a cut flower. Not for me anyway. I know lots of people have them as cut flowers. So these are my Dutch iris, and you can see this one's ready to pick because it's showing the colour of the flower underneath. And I've just about finished picking all these. I've only got a few flowers left. And in this bed I've experimented with a bit of interplanting. So here are my daffodils, or my jonquils, and they're just about, well, they are finished. They've been finished for a while. And I just need to go through and tidy up the bed. I pull out the old flower stalks, which come out quite easily. And then I'll let the leaves die down naturally. And underneath there is Nigella growing up through. So I'm just going to see this year how that works. I don't like to sacrifice a whole bed to just bulbs. And if that doesn't work with the Nigella, then I think I'll experiment with some cosmos later on this season when things have died down a little bit more. And of course I've got some granny's bonnets too there. They're the pink petticoat ones. They're really pretty. So I've got them in a few places, and hopefully they will grow up through the spent daffodils and iris. So we'll see how that goes. So another spot where I've got interplanting, and where I didn't come up with the idea, but where I thought about applying it in this area was with my snapdragons. I noticed I had some larkspur coming up in the seed, which I don't mind, and I just thought how well that went together, because they're both spike flowers, so why couldn't you plant larkspur and snapdragons together? So that's when I decided to do a few more trials of interplanting, and I'll show you what I've done over here. So the same as the daffodils, I didn't want to devote a whole bed to a bulb. I wanted to get as much bang for my buck as I could out of these perennial bulbs, because I'm not going to dig them up each year. So these are my LA hybrids. These are my liliums, and I've got Honesty, which is a biannual growing up in between. I'm not sure how that will work. And then even in between that, I have some larkspur. So this bed might be interesting, but I figure I'll give it a go. I might be shading my liliums too much with the Honesty. I don't know. I would have thought that the liliums will grow taller than the Honesty, so that might work. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. That's my Godisha. So hopefully that flowers this year. It's been really hot, and I know that Godisha or Clarkia likes the cooler weather. I'm having the same problem here with my corn cockle. It traditionally likes the cooler temperatures, and it's ready to flower, but we've been really warm, so I'm not sure how that will fare this year. So I've also interplanted some more larkspur. In between these are Madam Butterfly snapdragons. I'm not sure if you can see them in the middle there. And some larkspur with delphinium. So I've got so much larkspur because I couldn't grow it from seed. I just failed at larkspur, and then all of a sudden the temperatures must have been right to induce germination, and then all of a sudden I found that I had so much larkspur. So that's why I'm trying all this interplanting. And of course you get some things, some billy buttons there in the middle of my Russian status. So I don't know if that was my mistake or the mistake of the seed supplier. Not that I care. I'm happy to have flowers everywhere. So again, another bed of liliums and just larkspur this time, growing up in between. And it seems to be okay. And I'm hoping though the liliums will support the larkspur, because one of the problems I've had with another patch is, despite the staking, they're very floppy, and I find they're quite brittle at the base. They snap quite easily, so we'll see how this goes. So of course there's interplanting success and there's interplanting failure, and I probably should have predicted the failure. These are peony poppies, and I forgot how big they got when you planted them in rich soil. I've always had them in the garden and they haven't grown so big, but these beds, these raised beds, are full of mushroom compost and all sorts of good stuff, so they've just gotten enormous. And this is after I have stripped them back. I keep breaking bits off and stripping them back, and they just grow like no one's business. And the reason why I think this is a fail is there's peonies in this bed, and peonies like lots and lots of sunlight. So I'm not sure that I've helped my peonies, which are probably the plant I value the most, because I never have much success in growing them. So I think that's an interplanting fail. I've also, because I'm such, I don't know, an overachiever, I think, trying to cram things together, trying to put everything in the bed, I have put also the foxgloves. So there's foxgloves, peonies and peony poppies in this bed, and it's just way too much. The peonies look fine, but they're a little bit crowded. So that is an interplanting fail. On this bed here, I got so sick of ripping them out, the poppies, that I just took them out altogether, because I'm continuously pruning the overhanging leaves to give the peonies more sunlight. So I got sick of doing that. Probably the better option to go, I think the foxgloves on their own would be okay in this bed without the peonies, and the Iceland poppies, I think they're okay because they're quite short. So that would be an interplanting, a better choice for interplanting, I think, in this situation. So that's it today. A little bit of a garden tour, a little bit of a flower farm tour, and a bit of an update on what I'm doing. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.